All right, here we are, Wednesday night, HellaBass live again. Excited. We got the 4th of July weekend coming up, and we got the sleepy assassin, Austin Felix, joining us. How's it going, Austin?
It's good. A little wore out from fishing today, but happy to talk to you.
Yeah, cool. So if you guys are in chat, I see there's a few people on. Let us know how the sound and video is quick so we don't have any issues, but I think it sounds pretty good. So Austin, last time I had you on was like exactly a year ago, like almost to the day, I think. I just looked back and looked at that. And I've actually got it turned on public, so I expect people to actually show up this time, which will be nice.
There was probably only like one tournament in that last time.
It was 2. I think it was right after St. John's and Eufaula last time. So kind of flipped, same exactly 1 year or same date in the season, and you were 2 elite tournaments in at that time last year. Now you only have 2 left.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody says it sounds good. Chad, Owen, Drew, what's up? Thanks guys for joining. Nice. So today you were up at Mille Lacs tuning your smallie skills and checking out the active target. What did you learn today, or what happened?
I mean, I've been up there. I think this was my 3rd day over the last week that I've been up there. I've just been running up there, just trying to get ready for smallmouth fishing, get ready for northern fishing, both make sure all my tackle is ready. It kind of, you get out there, you realize when you forgot something or whatever, and then I'm rigged for everything. And then the new active target we've had all year, but with the way our schedules lined up so far this year, we really haven't got to use it much.
Mm-hmm.
We've had a lot of shallow water tournaments, a lot of cold water, a lot of dirty water. So it hasn't really been much use to me except for on Gunnersville. I did catch some fish on one of those 8-inch Magnum spoons.
Nice.
A lot like smallmouth fishermen. I was literally chasing around like small schools of them, pitching that Magnum spoon out in front of me, and you'd watch it fall through them, and they'd chase it up and down until one would eat it. But I hadn't got to do it with smallmouth, so I wanted to make sure I could see them on the boulders, see them on the bottom, tucked tight, make sure I had everything laid out and set up how I wanted it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying I think we're ready to go now.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean, like seeing a 2-ounce spoon is a little easier on active target than making sure you can see your Ned rig, right? So
yeah. Now you can see everything with that, just like the Garmin as well, or better. I mean, I can see a weightless 4-inch Senko 60 feet in front of me. You can see a tiny 16th-ounce Ned 60, 70 feet in front of you without any issue, really.
Nice.
So
bangers in the house.
Oh boy.
It's like your fraternal twin is hanging out in chat. Darius is up in St. Clair. It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
Morgan caught a 6-pounder yesterday. Nice. Let's see. Oh, looks like Landon maybe talked to you last night on the water.
Last night.
Maybe it was me. Maybe he thought maybe it was me on Marion.
Must be you. I wasn't out last night. I was out yesterday morning.
Okay. Landon, if that was you on Lake Marion, I did run into a little bit of a flipping school last night. So cool. So before we get too far, I just want to thank Arsenal Fishing for supporting the channel, supporting the live stream. Couldn't do without them. Makes the quality of the show better. If you guys want to support them, you can use my code HellaBass15. Get some good gear. Get some of those wacky pliers and some of the other tools. They got some good stuff. So now that the business is out of the way, what's up, Doug? So I guess, was there anything that surprised you? Yeah, there you go. So even Austin's got the Arsenal. So there you go. It's legit. So was there anything that, now that you got to kind of like dig into your live target for smallies, is there anything that surprised you, or sorry, active target, like that was better than you thought it would be, or target separation or fish size? Like, is there anything that like stood out to you after like kind of really trying it for 3 days?
One thing just in general, what I really like about it is the ability to, I can basically crank up the sensitivity or the gain as high as I want. So I actually have it really high, almost blown out, just because I want everything. I don't really care about how good the definition or how good the rocks look. I just want the blobs to be as bright as possible so you can see them. And so that's one of the best things I figured out about it. I can crank it up. I think I have it on like plus 12 right now. So besides that, it's definitely, I've got to play with the Garmin a bunch before this came out. So I've been able to compare it. It's got a little bit narrower cone. So it's a little bit harder to make sure you get your bait in the cone. But once you do, it's like you're obviously more precise. And it's easier to see your bait because it is that precise. You can pick out a smaller bait. But yeah, I don't really have any bad things to say about it at all. They're still working out a few little kinks. Like the one issue I do have with it currently is where they stitch, because the transducer is actually 3 cones.
Yep.
Where they stitch those cones together, you can get a little bit of distortion. So you kind of have to move it around. It's not anything that's going to affect your fishing. And I know like the Garmin Live Scope, when it first came out, had the same issue, and it was able to be fixed just with like software updates. I'm sure they'll do it with this too, but it's just early. But as far as fishability, you're not losing anything compared to going with the Garmin. The way I have it set up with that 12, I have just a 12 solely running on that, so you can see everything. It's freaking awesome.
Nice. So yeah, you have to be a little more precise on your alignment on a long cast because of the cone. But if you are on, then right? Like you see a fish and your bait on a longer cast, the more likely that that your bait's close compared to that wider cone. So
and it was cool today. In the last couple of days, you bomb, like I was throwing the 16th ounce Ned head out there pretty much on just a little Ned, but you'd scope a fish 50, 60 feet out and you bomb it out there, and you could actually like watch the fish catch the thing halfway from the bottom, and you watch them run up, and then it just takes off. But
nice.
It works good. I'll definitely never have a boat without one at this point. If you don't have one tournament fishing, you're getting left behind.
Very nice, Darius. Glad it worked out for you. That's a nice little savings on a zillion.
There you
go. Cool. So what are the fish doing on Mille Lacs for the people that are like maybe heading up there over the 4th or in early July? Like what kind of depth ranges, or what are you looking for?
I was catching them in like 8 to 15 on the reef breaks and stuff like that. There's a pretty solid mayfly hatch going out there right now, like a pretty big one. So just throwing Ned rigs. If you get up shallower, wacky Senko, just slow stuff. You can actually catch some fish on top water right now. Strangely enough, they're just probably because of the mayflies. If you go around throwing a small walking bait or a small popper, you can get some bites too, and a lot of fish show themselves that way, and you can catch a bunch of them. But that's really all I've found, is just a really slow grind.
Is there much of a slime up there right now, or on the rocks? That's good. Sometimes you go up there this time of year and there's like just certain places that are completely unfishable almost because of the slime, seems like.
Yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time chucking and dragging at the same time, though. I was trying to dial in that active target. So if I spent a lot of time just like scanning with my trolling motor and see a group, then we'd set up on them and like make individual casts and try to hit individual fish. But
nice. Be safe while you're driving. Like John Cox does. There's still definitely people out there that it really depends on the style of fisherman you are, your angler, right? There are definitely people that John Cox is the one that jumps out to me, right? I'm sure there's other guys.
Well, like I said already, this is really, with the exception of that one deal on Gunnersville that I didn't figure out until day 3 of the tournament, the live scope really hasn't affected any of my Knoxville a little bit, finding some deeper outcroppings that I was throwing a shaky head on, but like St. John's River didn't use it. Knoxville used it a little bit. Or Pickwick, it wasn't really used by anybody. Lake Fork, some of the guys obviously were using it, but I sight fished the whole time.
Right.
Same with Sabine River, nobody really used it. It's obviously there are times there are going to be a few tournaments on the schedule every year that you're going to get left in the dust without it, but there's also a good number of tournaments that it's not going to make a difference really.
Yeah. It seems like the Great Lakes, like once you get off the spawn, the Great Lakes are like you show up without a live imaging and you're fishing for maybe a check.
Yeah.
But
the thing is, all these fish have gotten so much smarter over the years, and they're going to get used to this too. And as soon as they do, it's going to be way more difficult. Maybe you're going to have to turn it off or make sure your sonar doesn't ping on them out in front of you or whatever. But it's just like 6-8 years ago, you could drive on top of a boulder and drop down onto it. And now you get your boat over the top of these fish. And like, I really hardly even fish for the fish underneath my boat anymore. Like if they make it to my boat, I'm just bailing on them and searching for ones out in front of me that don't know I'm there yet. And it's just, the fish are going to keep getting smarter as everybody gets this technology. It's not going to be, you're going to have to do something different. We'll see.
What are your thoughts on like when you get in like a real weedy lake like Tonka, do you think it plays much or not?
I haven't seen it, but
I'm sure there's instances, right? You could probably catch them out on the like some clean rocks here and there, but
oh yeah, you can catch largemouth like off the weed lines, and I'm sure you can see fish like off the edges of the coontail if they're like away from it. But it gets, I've found that it's really tough to see any fish actually in the grass. It blows out pretty quick. I think it's hard to decipher anything. You really have to change a lot, like your depth settings. You have to like lock in place because it'll get glitched out from all the grass. And I don't know. I haven't figured it out, but then again, I haven't figured out the whole suspended tree bass on fork or anything like that either. Like I've tried it a little bit, but I haven't got that dialed. So I'm sure there's people are going to figure it out just like that whole deal, but like Walter's got, but it's something people are going to have to learn. You figure out something unique, you're going to do really well.
For sure. What are your thoughts on a place like the Mississippi River, the upper Mississippi? Front facing.
I think maybe in the fall wing dam fishing, I think it could be helpful because you could just scan them real quick.
And sand drops probably.
No, and yeah, sand drops, stuff like that. Like anything. The one issue you have with it is just if there's a lot of current, a lot of times the same thing happens with St. Lawrence. It's really hard to see fish on your down scan or on that just because the current's so heavy. They really tuck down tight against things, and they kind of disappear, and you have to sort of fish for them. That'd be the only issue I would think with the Mississippi River. At the same time, a lot of like you could scan a lot of them island heads and undercut banks and stuff and see where the actual like stumps or root balls that you're flipping to and stuff are, and definitely dial into something like that pretty quickly and be a lot more precise and probably see if there are fish on those sort of deals.
Yeah. Mega 360 would work for that type of thing as well. If you're just looking for that image, you don't run any kind of. Have you ever run a 360? I'm assuming
No,
you don't. Yeah. There are some questions in here about comparing it, and I didn't think you ever had run it. So, cool. So last year, obviously, we talked early in the season, and it was I think you had one decent tournament and one not so good tournament, and then you went on a pretty good run after that. Won yourself Rookie of the Year. Kudos, congratulations. Did that do anything for you? Did you do you feel like that got you some exposure, or did it change anything for you, or what was your experience winning Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, I mean, it's just an accolade. It gave Mercer something to say every morning when I blast off, and it's kind of a personal point of pride. I didn't make any money specifically from it. There wasn't like a prize for it, but it's something you can't really
get one shot at Rookie.
Yeah, you can't really take it away. And I said it on stage when it happened. Like, if we had one more tournament, there was a good chance somebody else would have won, just because there was a lot of incredibly good anglers. But I don't know. It helped me kind of grow a personality with bass. Like, Mercer gave me the nickname, and and I don't know. I kind of feel like I've sort of solidified myself with bass, and a little bit more than a lot of guys that may just be kind of stuck in the background. It's just that's really about it. I don't feel like I've gotten any more sponsors specifically because of it. I feel like I've grown some sponsors more because of making the classic Rookie of the Year. But yeah, I don't know. It's just a little accolade, a little something.
So speaking of the classic, that was your first classic, right?
Yeah.
What was that experience like? Was it overwhelming? Was it what you expected? Is there things that caught you by surprise?
The actual like tournament part of it and like the fishing didn't really bother me, having fished 4 Forest Wood Cups. Once you get out on the water and start fishing, it honestly becomes just like any other tournament. Granted, if I'd have been leading or something, or had a big flotilla of boats, I'm sure it would have been something different, but I did pretty shitty, so it didn't really matter. But the craziest thing about it, and I've heard people say that it's just a wild week and a crazy week, but you don't, until you fish one, you don't really understand the fact that on a good day for practice and through the tournament, so it's like almost 10, 11 days. On a good day, you'll get like 3.5 hours of sleep, just because you got so much stuff. By the time you move to the hotel, it's an 1 hour and 20-minute drive in the morning to get out there. Plus, you got to get to your boat, taking a shuttle. So you're waking up at about 3 a.m. every morning, taking the shuttle, getting to your boat, driving 1 hour and 20 minutes to the lake to get there an hour early to sit around. And then you fish all day and you have to drive 2 hours back through traffic. And it's just, once that's done, still got to re-rig, and it's an incredibly, like, it's a circus, and it's a really long day. Even the practice days were nuts, because like our official practice day, we essentially had to run a regular tournament day. So we had to do the same thing, run the whole tournament day. We all got back, and then you had like 45 minutes to shower and get dressed, and then you had to go to the Dinner of Champions thing, and that went on until like 9, 10 at night. And there's always somebody trying to go out and party a little bit and stuff. It was like, I definitely feel like I'll be more prepared next time, because you really have to like have all your shit together.
Yeah, you don't get to like hang out in your boat and work on tackle for 4 hours at night. Like,
no.
Yeah, it's the same way at the Bass Nation National Championship. They run it like a mini classic, so they have the whole boat yard and the hotel and the shuttle, and like that's. I always tell people, it's like you like, as soon as you pull in, like while you're waiting for your boat, like you're working on tackle, and like when they're pulling you out, you're working on tackle, because like they're gonna put you on a bus and then you ain't gonna see any of that stuff, and it's pretty nuts.
Oh yeah, that's what. Like, I think I was the only guy that went through the weigh-in with all my rods still on my deck, because I was like rigging tackle while I'm sitting back at line and stuff. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
But it was an experience. It's like I said, I fished 4 Forest Wood Cups. So I've been somewhere similar, but it's just a different level that you don't really understand until you run through it. Like I've worked a couple of classics, but it's not something I want to miss ever again. So
you're saying even as big as the Cup, the Classic was ratcheted up several notches from there.
Oh yeah, it's just totally different.
Yeah.
And that was like one of the other things. I was talking to Mercer after Cherry won, and they had this sort of little private champions toast thing where all the anglers get together and congratulate Cherry, and everybody hangs out, and the tournament's over, so everybody just kind of relaxes and has a few and whatnot. And the last day, I didn't make day 3, so I was working the show, and just like walking through the show, you'd like hear people whisper like, "Oh, that's Sleepy Assassin," and really freaking weird. Like I thought this was some stupid like little joke thing, and I told that to Mercer. I'm like, that thing is way bigger than like I ever thought it was already. And he's just like, "Oh yeah, it gets pretty crazy," but it was just, I don't know. It's not something you ever expect to have happen. Just really.
Were you wearing your pajama pants at the expo on day 3?
Yeah, I had to. Like I didn't wear them fishing, but I kept them with me in my truck, and I changed into them before he went through the weigh-in the first 2 days. Just cause.
Cool.
Yeah, hopefully I can get some. I'm trying to get Sightline to like make some
signature.
Something like that. I had a bunch of people like message me randomly on Instagram and stuff. And I think it'd be a good idea. So we're gonna try to do that.
I feel like I was listening to something Zona was on, and somebody said they touched them and they were surprisingly a nicer fabric than they thought they would be.
Yeah. The ones that I wear on stage, and the blue ones that I wear most of the time, moving over from FLW to Bass, like you're not allowed to wear blue jeans or anything. So I'm like, oh, they're never going to let me wear pajama pants. So like I scoured the ends of the internet to find then I found these plaid golf pants. They're actually like Nike dry fit golf pants. They just look like pajama pants, but so I wear those to kind of like find the loophole around the rule. But I think at this point I'm kind of grandfathered in because I have worn actual pajama pants on live before. Like on Neely Henry, I was wearing just regular pajama pants.
Nice. Secret's out. Hopefully Lisa's not watching. So
yeah.
Craig wants to know what body of water growing up in Minnesota helped you most as an angler.
Oh, I mean, it's got to be Minnetonka. That's where I spend all my time. Same thing with Seth, I guess. And it was more fishing the Denny's and just being out there every day because that lake changes so incredibly much so quickly, and it has such a wide variety of ways you can catch them that you can really become a really well-rounded angler just by being able to compete all year long on Lake Minnetonka.
Right.
And I mean,
Bill says, when you're home, where do you fish? I think we talked about this last time. I think you basically fish like Mille Lacs, Tonka, any places that like a Costa Open or Elite or something might come to someday, right? That's kind of what you try to do.
Yeah, if I'm fun fishing, I like to fish a lake that I think there might be a tournament on. Granted, I never go down to La Crosse or anything just because I never really have. Other than that, I just fish whatever tournament lakes I happen to be able to get into. I used to fish a lot more around here.
Mm-hmm.
I fished so far this year. I've been on Tonka 2 days, and I think I've spent 5 days on Mille Lacs, but I haven't spent a bunch of time fishing in Minnesota yet. But our season's been so compact that we've basically been gone the whole time. And
right.
With this northern swing, I'll be back home for the rest of the season, so I'll be able to relax, fish some local stuff maybe if I can get into it and
sure.
Screw around.
I got an idea, Austin. So the last tournament of the TBF team trail that I'm fishing, I'm probably going to go to Florida and take my family to Wizarding World.
Yeah.
So my partner needs a sub on Clearwater, so maybe you could jump in and fish that one for me.
There you go. Or I'll just take your kids to Harry Potter World.
Yeah, I'll take the kids to Harry Potter, and then you can fish a tournament for me.
Nah. When is that?
Early September.
Okay.
Should be before duck season. Should be perfect.
Yeah. Go flip some milfoil.
There you go. Yeah. What did you think of the drive for the weigh-in? Like, what was that like? Like, was that a huge pain? Just part of the deal? Like,
the first day of the tournament, so Friday, it was a huge hassle because obviously it was still during the week, so you had like regular rush hour traffic, and every day you had to drive by the NASCAR racetrack there.
sure.
And on Saturday there was a NASCAR race. I think it was Saturday and Sunday, but like Friday and Saturday, that was like everybody was piling into that deal. So Friday was rough. Friday, I was one of the first boats in, so I missed it, and it only took me like 2 hours and like 20 minutes to get back. But right behind me, there was a wreck, and it was taking guys like 3+ hours just to get to the ramp. But it's something you have to do because it's really hard to have a tournament anywhere where you have a venue big enough to run their expo and have a stadium big enough to run the weigh-in while being relatively close to a lake. That's kind of the reason why they tend to go to a lot of the same places, because there's so few venues that have all the necessary locations.
Yeah. That's why Hartwell's so attractive. I think it's actually pretty close there, isn't it? Like,
I think Greenville still. I'm not sure if they're going into Greenville or what.
Oh, probably.
They should. Like they keep pumping a ton of money into their whole system,
Sure.
though. Too.
Yeah.
Like Neil, who runs the
Anderson County.
Tourism thing.
Fish Anderson. Is that what it is?
Yeah, he's also like everybody calls him the super marshal. He marshals like every single elite event. And if you ever look at the blogs, whoever he's with that day,
a bunch of pictures
like 10 blog posts, and he like writes whole articles. The man's like superhuman when it comes to that thing. Like, you're gonna get coverage if he jumps in the boat with you.
Have you had Neil Pauls and Marshall?
Yeah, I had him day 3 and day 4 of Chickamauga last year.
Nice.
Because he always jumps in with the 10th place guy, because I think they only had 9 cameras. So he was like the one marshal. So,
which he's like a quasi camera guy because he's probably got his cell phone going, and
he's got it going constantly.
My team partner said he'd be okay with that if he decided to sell.
Yeah, I'm not that great. I've never won a tournament on clear water. I'm only fished 2 or 3.
Hopefully we have the points sewed up by then. So I think they have a rule where you have to fish 3 events, don't they, now with the Champ Tour?
Say that again?
Somebody was asking about the Champ Tour, and I said I think there is a rule that you're supposed to fish 3 events. But
I could get back. I don't know if I could get back into it again. I don't think I'm gonna fish the Champions Tour anymore. I got a bunch of other stuff to do, and I don't want to get into why I'm not gonna do it. I don't want to.
We'll do that in the after hour show.
I like Bonamo, and I like all the guys that are fishing it. There's just, I don't know. It's I'm gonna fish 5 fish tournaments and stuff.
Yeah, I would personally fish it if there was a little more restrictions on information and practice lengths. That's the biggest thing for me. Yeah, that's
number one. You should get like a day and a half of practice, and if it were off limits a month beforehand, it's what I think it should be. But
right,
I fished it for a few years, and there were guys that spent a week up there, and with that format, with that much time, it can give you a big advantage.
Yeah. But otherwise, I mean, obviously, it's probably not going to change as long as they're getting full fields. So
yeah, but this year everything got a full field. Like, it was bonkers. I actually got booted out of the first Denny's tournament because he filled the field with full season competitors, and I wasn't able to fish the full season.
Sure.
I just wanted to jump in and fish the first one with the old man because I was around. But once he filled it up with full season guys, I got kicked, which ended up not being that bad. our spawn was so early this year that a lot of that was done by the time even that first Denny's. So I don't know if I could have won.
So going into this year, is there anything going from year 1 to year 2, big change? I mean, obviously you fished the FLW tour, so probably maybe not. But I mean, from an elite perspective, was there any difference from year 1 to year 2? Anything you were more prepared for, or anything you changed?
Oh, not really. I mean, the biggest change was getting Eris as a rod sponsor.
Right.
That kind of came out of nowhere, but they've been awesome to work with. And yeah, just, I mean, what can you, just how, I would say how smooth everything went. Because last year, the whole schedule was so out of whack that nobody ever really got settled in, got to fish. But then this year, we smashed everything into the front half of the season. I'm assuming just in case anything happened, they could push stuff back. Well, we ended up getting through it all. But I think we've had one event that didn't either have a delay or a cancellation or something along those lines. It's just been freaking wild, like 2 years in a row. I guess, I don't know. I feel I've been doing this 6 or 7 years now. So I kind of like, as far as the travel and fishing and practicing, everything's kind of.
You were Elite Series rookie last year, but you weren't a tour level rookie. Like talking to Bob Downey last week, right? Last year was like really a rookie season for him when it came to the Elite Series. And so I think there were more learnings for him last year and like how to adjust to fish at this level. And that probably really wasn't a thing for you going from, year 6 to year 7, right? Versus so.
Oh yeah. I always say that fishing FLW was probably the best thing I ever did because it taught me how to be a pro and how to practice on a limited practice and how to run water, break down water, and put a tournament game plan together. So when I got over here, I was able to be pretty successful right out the gate. And you see that constantly from the guys that move over, whereas the guys that come from the opens, and not to say anything, I think next to winning like at Elite Series AOI, I think qualifying through the opens for the Elite Series is probably the second hardest thing to do against that field. But
especially now.
Yeah. But you don't have a limit on practice. There's not really a limit on information. It's different once you get here. Like it's extremely difficult, but there are certain things the opens don't teach you.
Right.
You have to learn by doing, and the only way to do it is to fish a tour level events, whether it's the Elite Series or the Big Five now or something.
The Tackle Warehouse Pro Circuit.
There you go.
I mean, come on. It's not like it changes every year, Austin. Like, I did not know that. Yeah, and I think, to some degree, right, like fishing on the FLW for several years where the field size was probably 150 to 200, and a lot of them were grinders, like almost to some degrees, like obviously the competition is really good here, but like going to an 80 to 100 boat field and sometimes fishing in general better lakes at better times of the year, there's probably some, like, it probably almost feels, I don't want to say easier, but there's definitely
no, you're absolutely right. Like you all had to find little out of the way areas, and it was surprising last year when I'd run down the lake and be like, oh, I gotta check, and I'd pull in and there's nobody here. Like there'd be 2 boats on everything at FLW just because there's 180 boats on the field.
Yeah.
And most of the guys are good enough to find most of the fish. But yeah, it's just having 100 boat field. It's a noticeable difference when you're actually fishing and like try to get on areas. You could on the FLW tour, like on Kentucky Lake Ledge Tournament, I had like 24 schools marked, and I had a late boat number, so I ran down the lake and I just kept running by schools, and there was people on all of them. I ran all the way to the end of my last school, and there was people on all of them, so I just turned around and had to start running back to try to find one to get it.
To start graphing and looking for a new school.
Yeah, because I didn't want to just pull in on somebody. So I thought I'd find one that nobody was on. Well, they were on everything. So then at that point, you start running back, and that doesn't happen even on Gunnersville. Most of the time, I could get on some of the schools. Like obviously, that's fine.
Yeah, unless the locals are on them, but
Yeah, but usually they're pretty good too. Like if you pull up and ask, they'll, oh yeah, you fishing? That's the way it is pretty much everywhere down south. You pull up, well, you got bad guys everywhere, but you pull up, most of them are like, oh yeah, come on in, and they'll stop fishing or either leave or just watch you or whatever.
well, they're like, oh, you should have been here 40 minutes ago. They were biting every cat.
Yeah, you already
like,
got 22 pounds.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, that happens too, but that's just our sport in general.
Yeah. So this year, we're 6 events in. You've had a pretty solid year. You're sitting 29th in AOI. You're about 30 points above the cut line, which isn't, it's decent. Not like, definitely not foolproof, right? You got to catch them. But we're coming north, so you got to be feeling pretty good. What are your thoughts in general the last 2 tournaments?
I mean, I'm glad I am where I am.
I'd rather be 30 points in versus 30 points out.
Yeah. I'm glad we're going up north. I feel like I have an advantage over a lot of the guys. Like I'm going to have to do something stupid to fall out. But at the same time, I'm kind of nervous just because the way everything's lining up with weather and where they are in the spawn, I'm afraid that both these tournaments might be post-spawn funk, like difficult grinder events. Like we could show up on Champlain and like a 16 to 17 pound bag's a good bag for the event. Whereas last year, I think, shoot, if you didn't have over 18 a day, you were getting laughed at. But yeah, it's something we'll have to figure out once we get there. I get a better idea of the water. I saw something on Facebook saying Champlain, main lake Champlain hit 70 degrees for the first time here a day or 2 ago. So I'm sure the spawn's on the tail end either way, but we'll see. We're just going to have to figure it out as we go and kind of get there.
Yeah. Champlain's tricky, right? Because like you can be catching them, right? But like you said, 17 and a half could be like a day could be leading, but 15 pounds a day might be the 50 cut, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're not catching 3 1/4s instead of 3s or whatever, like you can lose a lot of ground just by, 4-ounce fish and a limit of them, right? So
a lot of people get out there and they get too spread out because it's not like you think, okay, I got fish over here and I got fish in the inland sea around an Isle de or whatever the North Bay is over there and stuff. And it doesn't seem that far, but it's 35-minute run. Like you kind of, people spread themselves out. That's not including if you want to go to Thai, which is 65 miles, something like that, to the bridge. Yeah, it's got fish a lot of places, but I think a lot of people will fish one day here, and one day over here. You're like, okay, I found some groups of fish everywhere. If you try to fish all that stuff, you spend 3 hours of your day running around. It can burn time fast if you don't do it.
And you've got a decent amount of experience, right? You fished some opens and some FLW stuff on, right?
Yeah, I fished 2 opens and 2 FLW tour events, and then last year with the Elite. But I've never been there when we're going here a week and a half. I was there last week in 2019.
And that was like
on beds like crazy.
That was the flogger FL, like you and Douglas with his ice fishing pole and all that stuff.
But that was also a late summer. Like everything was behind that year, whereas they had the same warm heat trend that we did real early, so everything got pushed ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
Yeah, that should be exciting. So what do you think? You think Seth's got it locked up? Do you think anybody's going to catch him?
I doubt it. If he just does what he always does on Champlain, I think it'll be pretty well over.
Yeah, I feel like if he top tens next week, it'll be pretty much over.
Yeah. I hope he does it.
Outside of a mechanic, I mean, something freak, right? Like doesn't make it back or something stupid like that. I mean, like.
Yeah, knock on wood. No, yeah, he's been fishing lights out. He's got, I think the only person that has a legitimate chance is Chris Johnston, but I think he's 50 points back, isn't he? So
yeah, I forget what it is. Yeah, because Johnston's not the closest, but he's
Christie,
the wheelhouse. I think it's Christie and a couple other guys, but so yeah. I mean, obviously some really talented anglers behind him. He's got to catch them. Like he can't just coast. But like, if he top tens on Champlain, like we all think he should or will based on past performance, and then cashes a check at a top 30 at St. Lawrence, it's over. Like,
hey, and he's been to both of these places 5 times in the last 6 years. Right. So none of this is going to be new to him.
So what is that hat?
It's a power pole hat.
Power pole hat. Okay.
Flag power pole. I actually got it at the Classic.
Just a weird shape of the flag. It almost looks like Australia or something. So it's a little.
Yeah. Oh, it was this close to 4th of July. I figure I better wear it.
Nice. It's sharp. Looks good.
I like it. I got a Dakota Lithium one that's like essentially the same design. So I think it was just like a generic hat that you could put whatever logo you wanted on them.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that we are 5 subscribers away from 5,000. So if any of you guys are watching and you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, think about it. We'd like to maybe celebrate the 5,000 yet tonight. I think a year ago, I looked like I was like 2020. So last time Austin was on was 3,000 subscribers ago. So
there you go. Milestone.
Just a reminder for those watching at home. Brian's still waiting for his bubbly water.
I can't walk over there right now. Is Seth's too loose?
I mean, there's plenty of room on the wagon for you. So join on in, Bono. Well, cool. So you got all your spinning rods all rigged up, your tackle. Like, do you have any more tackle to prep? I think you said you were leaving Friday to make the 20-hour drive out to Champlain. Is like everything ready? Like, how much left do you got to do?
No, I think everything's ready. You always rig the same, like 8 or 10 things. Once you move north, it was just more of a hassle this time because I was rigged for Texas when I got back. So I had to move all the big baits and all the heavy line out pretty much and put a bunch of spinning rods. And I hadn't really got to play with a lot of the light action spinning rods from Eris and stuff yet. And at least not with smallmouth. So I wanted to play with those a bunch and kind of just get everything dialed. But once, like, I knew what I was going to throw. You have to have a wacky rig, a net rig, a drop shot, like a Kitech swim bait, a crankbait, a jerk bait, a top water walking plug, and something to flip with, it seems like.
Yeah. I mean, so at Champlain, do you go in open mind, or do you lean brown or green going in, or I mean, do you kind of go in like see what the lake's doing?
I'll spend most of my time hopefully smallmouth fishing. Like, the one bad thing would be if they are in that post spawn funk, it could be difficult, but at the same time, with the way you fish now, with that active target, it's more hunting than fishing. And if you can just find areas that have a few fish and you just keep your head down and put it in front of 5 of them, you can have a good bag even if you only got 5 or 6 bites all day.
So you you'll probably be sight fishing for smallies, whether you're visually looking at them or whether you're looking at them on your screens.
Yeah, at least on Champlain. Now Thousand Islands again, they tend to hide real bad, so I'll probably be, unless I find something really cool out on the lake where you can actually scope them like that, I'll probably be drifting like everybody else does, trying some shallow fish if you can find them.
Right.
Last
Yeah,
year,
so
get the shallow fish to bite though. I know a bunch of people. Gussie was smashing them on his fuzz ball, and I know Polinick caught them shallow really good. But I found shallow fish, but they were all just so spooky that they'd all bail, even throwing 4 or 6 pound test on them, and I just couldn't get that shallow deal to work. Fortunately, I found some fish out on the lake.
yeah, and I think even Dave Polnick caught them one day shallow, and then he went back there and he could see them all again. But that one day, like the last day, he couldn't catch them, or third day, or something like that. So, what do we expect the winning weight at Champlain? I think last year was like 73, give or take, 72, 73 pounds.
I think it'll be
high 60s.
Yeah, maybe
68, 69, 70. I mean, I was not going to drop way off, but I mean, 72 is 18 pounds a day.
It was fishing pretty good. It was fishing good last time, though.
And a lot of that will depend on weather, right? I mean, if guys can get around and fish everything they want, and like you said, bounce around to their spots and not get right, then the weights will be up. Because you guys had pretty good weather last year, wind-wise. I mean, there was a couple times it kind of picked up, but for the most part, it was. I mean, obviously, Seth lost his graphs on the weigh-in one day, but for the most part, during the day, yeah,
driving like a madman.
And then I guess the other, the water's low, so who knows if Ty is going to play. But if Ty plays, then that could definitely bump up the weights, because if somebody goes down there and makes that run and catches 18, 19 a day of largemouth, then that changes things. But
yeah, it's so rarely you can do it. You can make that run 4 days in a row.
Right. I mean, nobody last year was relevant fishing Ty.
Like I'm staying with Brian Schmidt and Brian New for the next 2 events. And if anybody's going to find him down on Ty, it'll be Schmidt, because he loves it down there. So he'll spend at least 1 day down there. So if he tells me that I'm not going either way. Like after the week after the Champlain tournament last year, we had a week off that we just like hung out at Thousand Islands and fished. Me and Quentin Capo drove back down to fish a caching tournament that went out of Ty, and we still just drove all the way up to the inland sea. It went out of Ty. But
yeah, so I don't think it's like we figured the fish are going to be a little lighter because they're going to be closer to the spawn, and they're probably going to be a little funky. So it's not like it's going to be bad. I just think we think it's going to be a pound a day light, probably from last year. So I mean, it's not like it's going to be terrible and like 12 pounds a day is going to cash a check. Like it's still going to be still Champlain.
The schools might be broken up a little bit more. They're not going to be as far out deep, so it's going to be might be a little
fish that weighed.
They're going to light way less.
3.5 late July last year, going to weigh 3.25 this time year or whatever. I think we kind of talked about this, that you've kind of learned to steer into the skid and just go with it, right?
Yeah, no, you got to embrace it, and like if he does it, it's kind of a term of endearment, and it's kind of a badge of honor that you're one of the guys on the elites. Not everybody has a nickname, so I didn't know when I was going to get one. I was hoping I'd get one at some point. The fact that it happened 6 tournaments in the first year was awesome. I don't mind the nickname. I kind of like it. I know some people have told me they think it's stupid, but whatever. It is what it is. I enjoy it, and Mercer's a pretty cool dude. So
live check-in. We've picked up 3. There's just 2 more. Who wants to be the hero today? Just saying.
Honestly, I don't know if I'm subscribed yet. I don't want to click over.
You probably don't need to do it right during the stream. I do know that Austin peeks in from time to time. I remember last year right before Fork. The last event, I saw he like put the eyeballs up when I had Mike McFarland on like the night before the tournament, and he was kind of like keeping his mind open. Like,
yeah, you got to get as much information as you can. So I watch that stuff. When you go to Fork, I watch like the Lake Fork Guide.
Yeah.
And stuff. They put out a bunch of good information, kind of give you an idea of what you're going into. And that's one of the few lakes that has a few like YouTube guys that I feel like you can get like a lot of quality information about what the water's doing, what the bass are doing.
For sure. Yeah, that Mike McFarland, I don't know if he's like your Lake Fork or the Lake Fork, or he's one of them, but like he gives his weekly rundown, right? And he's like, water temperature went from like 57.2 to 57.3, and the water level went from 511.9 to 5. Like he gives like,
yeah, it dropped 2/10.
2/10. Yeah.
Does that have a difference? But no,
I feel like we're gonna go to a live watch now. Like we're gonna this is like New Year's Eve. We're gonna watch the ball drop. But so speaking of driving, like, are you like a podcast guy? I think somebody said you listen to a lot of the Harry Potter stuff over again, but like, what is your go-to stuff when you're driving? Are you a radio guy?
I listen to a bunch of Harry Potter stuff. If I listen to the radio, it's usually like Bloomberg Radio or the fantasy football station. There we go. Congratulations.
Cheers to you, whoever clicked.
Congratulations.
There, we did it.
But other than that, it's probably really unsafe, but I also watch a lot of Netflix on my phone. Like I just plug it into and I'll listen to podcasts. I listen to during the week, there's like live market open and market closes when the stock market opens and closes for like an hour and a half, that people go through that. So I tend to listen to that in the mornings from like 7:30 to 9:30, and then again from 2 to 4. So I've gotten kind of into that stuff.
Are you a headphones guy when you're out fishing? Do you listen to stuff, or are you like trying to not do like?
In practice, I got a pair of wireless Bose earbuds, just because you actually do spend a bunch of time on the phone.
Sure.
Trying to fish like this, there's been enough near misses where it slips and takes 2 bounces on the deck and your heart stops for a second. But now I just wear those earbuds because I can just hit it, and you can bullshit if somebody calls you or if you got to do something, and you don't miss a beat. You can still fish and do what you have to do. But
I've tried the corded earbuds, and when you go to set the hook and you go like this and they catch in your reel and you're like, ah!
Yeah, I used to do that, and you had to run them all the way inside. I would run them around out my back, and I bring them back this way to do it back in the day. But yeah, I got a nice pair of Bose ones, and they'll run for 8 hours.
Yeah. Fancy. When you said fancy football, are those podcasts, or you listen to the XM shows?
I usually listen to the XM station.
That's the plan, Bo. Keep going.
We just got to get fantasy fishing on DraftKings, and then this will really blow up.
I was gonna say, just imagine how many people would watch my fantasy fishing videos if you could actually bet on it.
Yeah, at the Night of Champions, I was sitting with one of the BASS upper management, and we were just bullshitting. He's like, well, what do you think? I'm like, the biggest catalyst you could possibly do right now if you want to grow this sport would be find a way to get it into DraftKings. And he agreed with me. I know some of the guys that morally don't really are nervous about doing it, but it's just one of those things. If you want to grow like that would be one way to grow really fast, because it'd be something else for people to bet on. And as soon as they start betting on it, they start learning more about it.
And honestly, fishing has to be like, whether it's like actual betting or fantasy sports, fishing would be one of the hardest ones to be consistent at.
Yeah. And what else bet on, or what else do you have if you were really into that sort of thing? What else do you have to bet on at 8 a.m. on a Saturday, or 8 a.m. on a Thursday or Friday? Like it fills a time slot before baseball or football or anything really starts up.
But I mean, just like, it's so like, every sport, like, I mean, I think like there's definitely stats in fishing, right? But like the data set, the sample size isn't there compared to the other major sports, right? Like if you really want to get statistical and on your betting and analytics, and like, you can make it more of a science in like pro sports.
I feel like people would find out anyway. They would find ways to do it.
It would be interesting, but I'm just saying, like, the way the schedule changed, like last year, like, what would you base it on last year? You know what I mean? Like fishing Santee in October, and like, you know what I mean? Like that. I mean, it was just so.
I mean, I just think that if it got big enough that there was a bunch of money to be made, there would be guys with their private discords and all their little private statistics, and he does this good and this sort. They incorporate, just like they do with baseball or football. These guys incorporate weather and everything.
Yeah, it'd just be interesting to see if they really could, how well they could do it. Could they get to the level they do on the other sports or not?
Yeah.
It'd be interesting, because they're just, I mean, all the other sports, you're not dealing with fish, right? Like that swim and, react to weather and barometric pressure and, boat breakdowns. And I don't know, there's seems like there's more variables in fishing than just about any other sport. So it would make it really interesting from both the people running it as well as the people playing it.
But yeah, it's just the most obvious thing I can think of if we wanted to like quickly find a catalyst to jump the sport big time.
Yeah, I mean, if you think back 10 years ago when FLW was pouring big money into fantasy fishing, right? When the year-end, like the weekly winners were winning like $5,000 and like or 10 grand, and the year-end winner was on 100,000, right? Like there were people playing fantasy fishing, like that were fantasy sports professional, like people that got into fantasy fishing that just played fantasy sports. Obviously it wasn't sustainable the way they were doing it from a business perspective. But there definitely, you could see some of that even back then. There was, people that just played fantasy sports that were playing fantasy fishing that had, never previously had any interest in fantasy fishing.
Yeah. But I mean, it'd be really easy to make, whether it's daily fantasy, you could cut it up into segments that you could have tons of stuff to bet in, whether it was, you could have individual day weights, you could have tournament weights, you could have big fish. Look at, or even just regular sports betting. They bet on everything from what the opening coin flip to like, it's just.
I know there was some speculation because, with Fox Sports getting involved in Bassmasters, that they have a Fox Bet, right? Regional app, or like they have. So there was thoughts, is there something coming down the pipe with Fox Bet? But I do think like the daily probably has the most merit, like the DraftKings daily type thing, where you could, especially for people like, hey man, I set my lineup for Thursday. I don't know if you ever played fantasy fishing, but like, and you roll into the first 2 days and you're like, man, nobody's in the top 50. I really blew this one, but then be able to scrap that and then just, okay, I'm going to put another $20 down on Friday and I'm going to pick
the weekend tournament. Yeah, there you go. And then you just have the last 2 days or something. I don't know. It just.
Yeah, it was 1 million the first year. It was crazy money.
Yeah, it was 1 million. I feel like I know somebody's brother who won the million. remember who. Anyways.
Yeah, there you go. Good stuff.
There you go. Random.
But then it's like, then you get into like, okay, if there's that much money, right? Then like, does it influence the anglers? Right? Then you got the whole like,
yeah. Well, how are you gonna affect anything by losing when you're one? And it's like fantasy golf. Can one guy really affect the outcome if he tanks?
yeah, I don't know. I guess it really depended on what the game was, right? I don't know. I guess without knowing the game, it would be hard to say. But not like a pitcher, right? In a baseball game, that could definitely
right. And at any given time, you don't know the score, anyways. It's like,
right.
So the worst thing you could really do is tank yourself. I feel like, and in that.
Yeah, that,
I don't know how you bet and win one and out of 90 guys
like
influence.
Yeah. And obviously with the points system, right? Like 2 bad years and you're out. So
yeah.
But I mean, even just the fantasy game that is now plays a big part, because I know like that keeps a lot of people like in tune, right? Like setting their lineups. I mean, like I always forget to watch the BPT. I honestly forget that it's on, because I think if they had a fantasy game, I would remember to watch it more often, as bad as that sounds.
Yeah, I agree with you. When FLW got rid of fantasy, I was pretty annoyed by it, just because I didn't feel like it was very big expense at all, and it really like it engaged fans and forced fans to get to know people.
Yeah, I mean like cutting the prizes down. I mean, even if you were only winning a few thousand or giving away a few $1,000 of stuff per tournament, I think there's so much more merit to having a fantasy game around the league. You definitely are going to lose some players by not giving away big money, but their hardcore fans will tune in and play the game, and it will keep them engaged with your league. So,
yeah. Have you been Drain the Lake?
So I've been playing Drain the Lake. It's a little more fun. Like definitely more strategy to that. I definitely set up a spreadsheet like from the very start and like mapped out like where I was gonna put everybody. I forget. I don't remember if I put you in on Champlain or St. Lawrence. I have to check the.
I've saved myself for the last two. I'm not sure which one I'm using either. But I was like ranked 90th or something until the Classic. Just because I picked a lot of like the opens guys and stuff, just because like I wanted to use them, just because there wasn't a ton of guys left that I didn't want to save for the last two. Like a lot of guys I wanted to save. It was them or just like random guys. So like I picked Keith Carson and a bunch of like that. But
I picked Carson too. That bit me at the Classic. So like here's my lineup for Champlain for Drain the Lake.
There you go.
And then I'm guessing you must be in this one.
Thousand Islands.
Yeah. Yeah. You, Gustafson, Ito, both the Johnstons, like Hugh, Mueller, and Bernie. I don't know. I might tinker with these, but being earlier, I feel like this, and the way Schultz likes to fish shallow, he's probably gonna be pretty good this time, I bet.
Yeah. Are you ranked really high now? I think I'm like ranked 300 and something after.
No, I've had a couple of mishaps, but I don't know. But I did set it up and like lay it all out, for the whole season. And I don't know how you do it without looking like away the full season, but
I don't know. I just picked the guys I thought would do best on each lake, and obviously,
like mentally, you were kind of keeping people, right? You're like,
yeah. If there was like northern guys, I'd set them aside.
like you knew you wanted to put the Johnstons in on St. Lawrence, right? Like you were gonna, and like you wanted Seth on Champlain and Schmidt on Champlain and like things like that, right? So
I actually put Schmidt on Pickwick.
okay,
But he top 10 Pickwick, so
there you go. I think I think I might have had him on my regular fantasy team, and I definitely thought about it. And I think he would have been an even stronger pick if the water didn't go up and down. Like if it fished like it would have in practice, he probably would have been even stronger.
Yeah. And then as far as regular fantasy, I just do terrible because I pretty much just pick all my friends. I was traveling with Brett Pruitt the first part of the year, but he had to back out the last two events, so who knows who I'll pick for Bucket E this time.
Yeah, slightly smaller field, right? We got Pruitt, Clint Davis,
Yeah.
and
What's his face?
Rick Morris, right?
That's it.
So Clint and Rick, medical. Brett's going to focus on the ranch. So basically financial, he's going to go back and focus on his ranch at home, right? So
Yeah.
and I think there was somebody else already dropped out.
I mean,
It was a Louisiana guy or something that, right?
yeah, Tyler Carrier dropped out already, and Jesse Tacaranti dropped out before the season started.
Yeah, and Gary Klaus.
Gary Klaus dropped out. But I honestly thought more than 3 people were going to drop out just because the way they're cutting so many people.
Right.
They keep sounds. I don't remember exactly how many they're going to cut, but they're planning on cutting like 20 something.
Yeah. So if you're mathematically weren't going to make it and you don't feel the northern swing was your wheelhouse to cash a check, it's like.
Yeah, I thought a lot of people would because the thing is, after Gunnersville, we had 2 events left. But when Gunnersville was left, we still had 15 grand in entry fees.
Right.
So I thought, when I saw that, I was like, ooh, we're going to lose a lot of guys. It's because I thought a bunch of people would say, why am I paying 15 with 2, let's just say optimally win 20 and then plus expenses, and then you're still going to get kicked. I was kind of expecting the doors to fall off and a bunch of people quit. But then they also said that the last tournament, the St. Lawrence tournament, the winner gets an automatic classic spot. So that might be keeping a few people also.
Yeah. And I guess if some of these people by contract with their sponsors, right? Like they may have those entry fees paid by sponsors, maybe not. And
that's true.
Fulfill the obligation, right? Like if they've got money, they've got to fish those to fulfill their contracts, probably.
Right.
So.
At the same time, a lot of the guys that aren't going to be around next year probably aren't the same guys that are getting all their entry fees covered. Because getting sponsors is not easy.
Oh, no. But maybe what you did get still hinges upon you fishing, 8 events, right? So. So you said you travel with guys. Do you guys talk? Do you work together? What is the vibe in like your house as far as like, do you guys, is it each do your own thing? What's that like?
With me and Brett, like they wrote an article about it. Me and Brett shared everything. Like I trust him with my life. And we all both fish so differently that we keep each other honest and let us know if they're up shallow or eating a frog or something, I'm going to know because he's going to tell me. And I kind of dialed in all the other offshore stuff, but this will be the first event I've talked with Schmidt. Like we talk on the phone randomly during events or during practice, and most guys do it. Like some people are more chatty than others. I know there are some guys that probably talk to 8 or 10 guys every day and they seem to be on the phone the whole dang time, but I'm not really one of those guys. I'll have 1 or maybe 2 guys that I try to share info with, and that's kind of the deal. Me and Brian New are kind of helping each other out for the classic. So, and then we're going to travel together the rest of the year. And I've been chatting with Schmidt. We were going to Schmidt was going to travel with me and Brett all year, but then he, John Cruz, Missile Baits is one of his main sponsors, and
Right.
John Cruz wanted him to travel with them. So he's like, I kind of don't really want to say no to one of your sponsors. So he's like, all right. So at least for the end of the year, we'll be together. So we'll see how it goes. I'll have somebody that I travel with here next year. It'll probably be one or two of those guys, and kind of got to feel it out. It's a new relationship like anything else. Like you share information until somebody burns you, but
Yeah.
you gotta go.
It's almost like my experience is like you'd rather have them not tell you anything than not tell you the truth.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, the worst thing, and there are guys on the elites that will straight up lie to you, and you got to just block them out and just, yeah, you take their info for what it is, just BS
Yeah.
mostly. But yeah, there are a few guys that I trust pretty well.
So what kind of travel are you? Are you like more of a motel hotel? You get a house? Like what is your typical?
We tend to get a VRBO or Airbnb whenever we can. This northern swing was a huge pain in the ass because we were supposed to go out of the Vermont side, and then a month ago they switched it. So now we're going out of Plattsburgh on 4th of July weekend is when practice starts. So you can imagine there's nothing to rent. So I think everybody's pretty much going to be stuck in hotels for this one for the most part. But yeah, we tend to get an Airbnb, whether it's a house or a trailer or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think New is going to be sneaky good on Champlain. Like you're going to go back and look and you're not going to see any boater stats for New.
Uh-huh.
But he fished like 3 tour level events and 5 what are now Costas, I think, as a non-boater.
Oh,
and
angler.
I'm pretty sure he traveled with Thrift and Airy for all of those. So I'm guessing a lot of those official practice days were in the back of Brian Thrift's boat. So I'm guessing he's got some good ideas of what he's going to want to do and make his own up there. So
he's always worried about it. Like he's called me a couple of times. Like, what do I need to have? He called me like 2 nights ago. What's the deal with this hair jig? Like, what do I got to throw it on him? So I'm like, kind of dialed him in on it. I'm like, I don't know how much it's going to play, but this is what you need. But he's also one of those guys that's like a tackle horde. So I wouldn't be surprised if by the time we get there, he's got like 30 fighter flies and like every color and everything. Because he's the same way Thrift is. Like when they buy something, they got to buy 12 of everything.
Yeah.
But
I know the hair jig is a good bait and it catches them. It's not something that I would want to try to build confidence in right before a tour level event.
No, and I've actually lost more confidence with it than I've gained over the last few years. Like 6-8 years ago, that thing was bananas. Didn't seem like you could reel it by a smallmouth and the thing wouldn't just run 30 feet to eat it. But now they've seen so many of them, they've definitely got conditioned to it.
Yeah, but I think you've fished it enough and seen enough smallies and experience that like if you saw the right conditions for shallow fish on either Champlain or right, you'd be like, all right, I'll dig it out quick and make 20 casts with it and I'll yes or no, right? But like it's not something I just want to pull out blind on a tournament if I hadn't had a lot of experience on it, I don't think.
Yeah. And I don't think it very well will play a part for some people in St. Lawrence, but I doubt it'll make a difference on Champlain. That if there's still a mayfly hatch, maybe, but I don't think it just doesn't seem to catch them any better there than anything else.
Yeah.
The fish on Champlain, if you find them, they'll usually bite, whether it's a Ned rig or a wacky worm or a drop shot.
Yeah. I don't know that the hair jig is a winning 4-day bait. You know what I mean? Like you might have a good day or a good flurry, but I don't know that it's something you're going to ride through a multi-day tournament. I don't know.
Yeah, not anymore. Like it seemed like the first year when they went to Thousand Islands, they were just smashing them on it.
Why are some of the guys getting cut from the elites? Basically because they didn't cut anybody last year, right?
Yeah, they didn't cut anybody. It sounds like their ideal situation is to get it down to like 80 or 90, because they want to be able to pay that 2,500 for the bottom spots all the way to the bottom of the field. Obviously, with 20 less guys or whatever, it's an extra. How much is that? 40 grand they get to save per event.
Sure.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy. The cuts are going to be deep, and whether or not, I don't know what they're going to do with the health exemptions people are taking. Like Rick Morris is taking one, but I think without that, I don't know if he gets cut. But
right, does that count as a cut? Right, right, or does that mean that he gets skipped and they still go? I don't know.
Is he getting invited back? Because it seems like a lot of guys could kind of trip and fall the last two event, and oh God, I have to take a health exemption.
But I think Rick said he's not fishing in 2022.
No, I don't know.
I think I saw that in the article that he's going to take a full year off, and if he gets back right, then he may try to re-qualify or reapply or whatever it is. So
right. And that's the thing I didn't know. Like Clint, I know, is taking the rest of the year off, but at the same time, Clint wasn't in danger of getting cut anyways. I think he finished 24th or 25th in AOI the last 2 years in a row. So even if he finished 80th this year, he'd still probably be inside. He'd still be fine inside the cut. I don't know where Gary was. So, but yeah, it's going to be interesting if they just remove one of the cuts, if there was a guy with a medical exemption who would have been cut, or if they just take the next guy up. Because that would really suck too if somebody made it, but then because there was a medical exemption, they just took the next guy up.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it would work, but who knows? Yeah, because I think you have 12 guys coming in from the opens, so that's part of it, right? They're adding 12, and they want to make the field smaller, and they didn't cut anybody the last 2 years, so that's kind of
right. I suspect next year I would not be surprised if they cut more than 12 just to whittle it down even more.
Right.
Which could get really scary then, because you're not going to cut any rookies. So you just got to catch them.
Yeah, and then you still have right, if you've won a classic or you've won an AOI, then right, I don't know if there's a lot of those guys that are necessarily down in that scenario, but somebody like a David Fritz may have a legend exemption, right, or somebody like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I was actually thinking about this the other day. I don't know the specifics about if that's just a perpetual exemption
or how many times you can use it, or
if you can be here as long as you want, or if it's something that it's one and done. I heard rumblings that was it the Legends exemption that they used to bring back Polinick and
Swindle.
I'd heard that was a one-time thing, and that hence the reason why Hackney and the guys had to re-qualify.
Yeah, I think there was some things about that where you had to use it, you had to sign up and be fishing an open series, or right, you couldn't just use it. You had to be also because that year Swindle and Polinick both fished all the opens, even though they used their exemption. So I don't know. It's not a guarantee. A legend example is, from my understanding, it's almost like a contract option.
I think
it's like a team option, not a player option, right? So
right. I think it's done. For example, from what I understand, they're not going to do it for anybody else anymore. So say it wouldn't happen, but if KVD said I wanted to come back, they wouldn't. They'd say you have to qualify at this point.
Yeah.
Hard to believe that would actually happen in that scenario, but
I think the only one that's probably like worth talking about would be Ike at this point.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And he could come back.
Right. If he like entered a full season that opens and then applied, maybe he would get in, maybe he wouldn't. I don't know. So, but maybe he doesn't want to. He's I don't know. He's got a lot of things going on, so I don't know what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Well, nice. If you guys got any more questions, we'll stay on for a few more minutes. I covered everything I wanted to ask. So if you guys got questions for Austin you want to run through quick, if we missed some earlier that you didn't get in, if you want to repeat them quick, we'll hang on for a few minutes and shoot the breeze. But I'm excited to watch this thing wrap up. Like, I think these are going to be some good events. The live is always awesome on the Northern Swing. I don't know. You think when do you find out? When do they usually publish or tell you guys whether you're going to be on live for like a opening practice or an opening day?
It won't be till like the day before. I assume I'll get one on Champlain just because I haven't gotten my first day live yet. That's what they gave to me last year. So
they've kind of like penciled, kind of like I penciled in my Drain the Lake. They've kind of penciled in the schedule for the year. Seems like.
Yeah, I assume, but who knows?
They don't like interview and be like, "Hey, how was your practice? Do you think you should be on?" Like that doesn't.
Oh no, Zona talks to every single live person before, like the day before, like shoots you a text, "Hey, shoot me a call," and then it's like, "Okay, so what's going on?" And you can be as forthcoming as you want, but just tell them what your plan is.
But I mean, like they're not. That's not necessarily. They're kind of want to know what's going on so they can speak to it on live, not so much as like, should we put you on live or not?
Oh no! Like once you know you're going to be on live, yeah, they talk to you to see what your game plan is, so they can articulate what you're trying to do out there and what your plan is.
Oh, Copper's excited. What's your go-to flipping bait for foil?
Either a 3/4 ounce hack attack jig or a craw tube.
And what's your typical weight on a craw tube?
3/4 most of the time, 3/4.5.
And are you a straight shank, EWG, snell knot, braid to fluoro? What's the setup for those?
On the craw tube, I throw that Gamakatsu ring hook, the 4/0 one. I've been doing braid to fluoro the last like 2 years, but kind of moved that over more to just about everything. But unless it's heavy, obviously, if it's heavy grass, then you just straight braid. It doesn't seem to matter. Half the time, it doesn't seem to matter anyways. Look at the guys on the Classic. I was flipping straight fluorocarbon, and half the guys that smashed them were all flipping straight braid.
Yeah, I would say my setup's pretty similar. Lately, I've been digging the D-bombs, but but like I've really become a believer in that ring hook lately. I don't know why. Do you have any insight on the mechanics of why it pins them?
I don't know. I just think it gives it better action, and I've got confidence in it, and so it's what I've grown up throwing out here. When I have to switch to a straight shank, like if I'm punching or something, or around heavy pads, then I'll switch to a beaver style bait or a Senko flipping. But yeah, a D-bomb's a good bait too. Like that's what I was flipping, a D-bomb when I was punching bushes at the Classic. That was like the only thing I flipped. But I wanted to run a straight shank just because it comes through the bushes, through the limbs better.
Yeah, but I think it does apply to any grass for the most part. Like I've definitely got on some bites recently on some lakes around here that haven't had milfoil, and it's usually just about finding the best grass. Even if it's like crappy looking spring cabbage, if it's the best grass, you're probably going to find some fish in it. So
yeah, you spend, seems like the second tournament of the year on Tonka, you always end up finding a few schools just fishing that curly leaf, flipping that curly pondweed and stuff, because that stuff's way higher than the milfoil at that point before it
Mhm.
dies. So yeah, you just got to find the thickest, heaviest stuff you can, whether that's hydrilla or coontail or whatever it is. And then one of the reasons, the other reason I flipped that ring hook on a craw tube is because those craw tubes, or just a tube in general, I hate trying to rig like a straight shank or something on a tube. They just never lay right, and they always are kinked, and it's just too much meat, and like it just doesn't work right for it. So that ring hook is just the perfect tool for the job.
Yeah, I assume you're pegging anytime you're flipping grass. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fancy football question.
Tom Brady the GOAT. You get the second pick in the draft. I don't know. Who are the top two picks right now? It would be McCaffrey won pretty much unanimously, and then I don't know, Henry or Kamara. Although Kamara doesn't have.
It's a lot of split carries though these days.
I'd probably say Henry, especially now that Julio's over there. It's going to take even more pressure off the line. The man's probably, he's led in rushing the last 2 years in a row, and they just got better. I don't see how he could not be number two. He might finish number one. It really depends on how McCaffrey does. I had McCaffrey last year, obviously. We had a keeper league, so you get to keep him 3 years. So I had him the last 3 years. I won 2 years ago. Last year, obviously, he just got injured, so I finished third that year, but I had to give him back this year. So hopefully he doesn't do that well.
Is this a fantasy league with your buddies back home, or is this like an Elite Series fantasy league?
No, this is with guys from high school and college that I used to know, but it's pretty serious. It's like $120 a guy, but they put out weekly newsletters that are like pages long. They have like a bunch of them are like accountants and engineers and stuff. So they have these huge long lists of like random stats. Like they know your like winning and loss percentage against every guy through the last like 16 years. And because we've had it for a while, and like all your finishes, and it's just a ton of crazy stuff. Like you could look at it for hours, but it's pretty fun. Like they get really into it.
So these are the guys that when DraftKings comes to bass fishing, they'll be giving you the stats on.
They'll probably be the guys. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know how many of them do like the daily stuff. They're just really into like our league. But
they got too much time at their jobs and they love spreadsheets.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like they insert little videos and stuff that you have to click on, and it's bonkers. I'll show it to you one of these days if we ever hang out.
Nice.
But yeah, that's about it. Fantasy football is fun just because it's usually going on before or during the off season. Same thing with the whole like stock trading stuff. It's just something to do that I can do when I have days off, and that's kind of what.
That's probably way more lucrative than starting a YouTube channel. So good decision by you.
Yeah, you got 5,000 subscribers now, buddy.
Subscribers. Yeah, cool.
I don't know if I have 5,000 Instagram followers, so you're doing better.
Live look-in. Let's I don't know. We can check. Let's do a live look-in on Austin's. If nobody's following Austin on Instagram, get your daily Harry Potter quotes via IG stories.
Yeah, well, I actually have Bart is filming my tournament recaps. And we usually like insert a couple just GoPro catches, and I just put all those straight to the Instagram TV. So if you want to know any tournament recaps, how I caught them on all that stuff, and each event, I put them up on IG.
Yeah, that is a good point. Actually, that's kind of something you started kind of end of last year, or yeah. And so you kind of do like, I don't know, 2 to 5 minute, just kind of like, this is what I did. This is what I found. Like break down the good, the bad, the ugly of each tournament, right? So that's
what the patterns were. But
yeah, and then you'll be the first to know when his signature PJs come out. So that'll be another plus.
There you go.
So there you go. Hit up Austin on IG. He'll be giving you some, maybe seeing some active target stuff out there soon, hopefully.
I was thinking about that. Like I should have tried filming, like getting one of those fish to run up to them Senkos, because like you can imagine how tedious fishing a Senko in like 12 feet of water is. Like a weightless Senko in like 12 feet of water. You just see it and you bomb it out there. It's like, it's funny because you'd be waiting and then you'd realize the point where they said, oh, hey, look, there's something up there. Because they'd be like sitting down by the bottom. All of a sudden they just swim up to it. And sometimes they'd eat it. Sometimes they'd like swim around it and swim back down. But it was funny. Like usually, like it wouldn't get very far into the water before they'd be like streaking to the surface to check it out.
Yeah, I think you're going to definitely catch fish that you wouldn't catch, but you're also going to learn a lot about fish behavior and like how far they pick up on things, right? Like you're going to go fish not super clear water and you're going to present a shaky head, right? And then you're going to cast it out in 10 feet and you're going to see a fish start to come up on it, when it's a foot down. You're going to be like, wow, how did they even know that was, like that kind of stuff. You're going to have those aha moments, I think, as you use it more.
There's that, and even more so, it tells you what not to throw, because you'll see fish and you'll throw something and they won't even react to it. And you're like, okay, I don't need to throw that a second cast until you figure out like what they at least acknowledge, like whether they're acknowledging the bait or not, and then you can play with other stuff to try to get them to bite. Like if you know that they're bass, you can like rifle through baits quickly and know that you're putting it on fish until you figure out what the deal is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think I'd rather not catch them than throw a weightless Senko in 12 feet of water. But, but I'm also not trying to make a living. So there you go.
Weightless Senko is awesome. I want a lot of money on that bait.
Yeah, I mean that's what you mainly threw at Fork. It looked like in the gallery.
Yeah.
Or a lot.
Yeah, that and a Texas rig. Probably 50-50.
I mean, sometimes it's the way to go. I'm always going to see if they'll eat the jig first, but there are times to put the jig down and pick up the stick worm.
Oh, yeah. Like, I don't know if it's a way to win, but you're going to get a lot of bites. And rarely does the guy that gets the most bites in a tournament do poorly, Do
You play around with the Tokyo rig?
I have not played with it at all yet. Haven't even I think I own one or two in the box right here, but I haven't even taken them out of the box or out of the package. I know some people are playing with them, but
I've tried it a few times when I've already been catching fish, like flipping grass. I don't know that I was getting more or less bites. Like it wasn't like anything. There was no aha moment the few times. I mean, I have not used it a ton, but the few times I've tried it, it was like I caught some fish. I think I was just flipping a Texas rig. I switched back and forth. It didn't seem like.
Mm-hmm. See, I've heard other ways of throwing it too. Like I've heard of guys putting like a straight shank and like a swim bait on it, and almost swimming it the same way you do like a wobblehead.
Nope, I haven't. I've only played around flipping it, but yeah, I've definitely heard of lots of things to try, and but there's not enough time to try all that stuff. I'm a weekend guy. I got time for that.
Yeah, I don't know. Eventually, I'm gonna somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, they're killing it," and then I'll have to actually put it in my hand and gain some confidence with it, but until then,
there is some parallels, I think, to the Ring DWG, right? There's potentially some overlap on why they both work.
Yeah, just the fragrance of the
So maybe because I'm already flipping with a Ring DWG, maybe that diminishes my need for a Tokyo rig. I don't know.
Yeah, there's just so many baits that have confidence in. I feel like my repertoire is so big, like I should be able to figure out something that I have confidence in at the elite. And until like I should play with it, I should just put it in my hand a day or two and get some confidence with it. But
yeah, I think the other scenario is if I ran into some unique situation where the fish were clearly in the grass, but somehow the bottom was mucky, or where my, the weight was digging in too far, that I wanted that 2-inch lift. But it's not very often you find them schooled up when you have a mucky bottom. So I don't know.
It's the opposite of what you're looking for.
Right. So that would be a very kind of unicorn situation, I think, where you actually had them piled up in an area with a soft, yucky bottom. I don't know.
Yeah. See, the one thing I've been thinking about trying it with is actually on the St. Lawrence. If I could like drift with it,
right,
put like a heavier weight on it, and run like a little heavier line, but at the same time the current will catch that line. So it just seemed like it would be a good way to like keep it right there on the bottom. But I haven't played with it yet. It's just an idea at this point.
John says Wheeler was using it. Sounds like he was using it on said mentioned body of water.
Oh yeah.
Which I saw this question earlier. Did you watch much of that? Like, do you feel like you and your competitors were watching a lot of what was going down on?
I tuned in for like 2 minutes the last couple of days.
Everybody was bed fishing, and you're like, "That's all I needed to know."
Yeah, I jump on and be like, "Oh, look, there's 12 floggers on the front page. Like, I think I understand how this goes down." But yeah, I'm more checked. I'm pretty good buddies with John Cox now, so we're like talking on the phone and stuff. So we'll see. So I was just checking in to see how he was doing, because he had a good first 2 days.
Which to be determined whether he's going to be fishing the bass event.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of a sticky situation.
Yeah, there's some guys that I don't want him to fish it. Think it's unfair.
I feel like it's a hard spot based on bass past precedent. Mm-hmm. The fact that Hudnall got DQ'd for accidentally fishing one day into Hartwell 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now John intentionally fished 2 or 3 days. I don't know how they allow him to fish. Like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but based on past precedents, I feel like if they allow him to fish, it kind of creates a slippery slope.
Right. No, I get it. At the same time, he stayed like next to the jam in Messina just to try to negate that whole thing. At the same time, like, the river kind of fishes the same.
Yeah.
Like, my whole thought was just make him run to the lake and fish the lake, because it's going to handicap him having to run that far, and the fishing will be different anyways, and it's far enough away that, like, I want him to fish.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for, like, I feel like it'd be great to give him an opportunity to fish. You know, he's out there trying to make a living. Like, I don't think he fished this event to gain an advantage. But if it happens, then it's like, this just opens Pandora's box, I feel like, of anytime somebody's like, well, I'm just going to go fish this Toyota series, or I'm going to go, like, I'll just see what happens. And, that's the problem, I feel like. And I understand the way he fished, and could they restrict him? But then, like, could have Hudnall said, well, I only looked at this arm of Hartwell, so I won't fish that arm. That, like, so it's, now I feel like Hudnall's punishment was too much, because, like, they could have easily just said, hey, no, you're just going to miss your first official practice day, right? Like, basically trade that pre-practice day for an official practice day. That felt like would have been a much more appropriate penalty than just DQing him for an entire event when he wasn't trying to gain it. It's not like he was out there with a guide in the off limits, right? He accidentally missed it, so why not just take away an official practice day, which would be still a good, right? Like, because you definitely wouldn't trade a pre-practice day for an official day. So I don't know. So
yeah, no, I didn't think about that. That would have been a good way to.
I mean, basically put him in the penalty box for one day of official practice, right?
Yeah.
But
well, you could do the same thing with Cox and tell him he doesn't get to practice, but that wouldn't be anything new.
Yeah, so it's like, well, whatever, like,
But it's
also like, that's 2 weeks out, not a full month out. Yeah. But then do you have guys like literally try? I mean, if you did that retroactively now, would you have guys that would jump in tournaments knowing that they're just going to miss practice versus not actually potentially face a disqualification? Like that's the thing is like, I feel like it opens up a slippery slope, which
right. At the same time though, none of this was like unforeseen. Like
this didn't just happen. Like these have been on the calendar for 8 months or 10 months or whatever. So,
and they were trying to figure it out, but it sounds like it's been kind of a hassle, and how he's been able to do it is beyond me.
Yeah.
Like the number of events he's fished on limited or no practice and actually like still done well blows my mind.
Yeah, outside of Neely Henry, which bit him, he's actually done really well, right?
Yeah.
So, but I feel like if they could have came to an agreement before he fished the tournament, there was possibly a way out of this. But the fact that now that it happened, I don't see how he fishes. But I'd like to see him fish, but I just don't see how it happens.
Well, the thing about it too is the other thing he was talking about is, so if he's DQ'd, is that just means
is that his drop or
no? He doesn't get to drop a DQ, but
okay.
If he's DQ'd, does that mean he just gets 0? Because he's still planning on fishing. Like he wants to go out the first 2 days, and you give him zeros. Like I just think he still has to be there. He still has to promote his sponsors,
right?
And they haven't given him a clear answer on whether it's one of those like you can't be on the water deals or like
or you can't cross the stage or like
So I don't know.
Or do you get to? I mean, like Hudnall ran a camera boat, right, and was on live, like participated as part of like the media at Hartwell. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's that too.
So I don't know. I guess we'll find out soon. But all right, one more question here, a quick one, and then we'll wrap it up. What's your biggest Tonka Smallie?
Oh, I don't know. I have maybe 4.5. They're not that big out there. 4-pounders are good ones. 4.5 probably. 4 3/4 maybe. Probably not.
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, we'll keep this kind of. I think we covered everything we needed to cover. Thanks for coming on. We'll let you get recovered. If you guys came in late, check the replay, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, or you can listen to it on your favorite podcast app. Just search HellaBass in your podcast app, and you can listen to it when you're driving to a tournament, whether you're working out, walking the dog, whatever. Make sure you check out Omnia Fishing and Arsenal Fishing. The codes are down below. Help support the show. Make sure you check out Austin's Facebook and Instagram. And as always, here to help you guys catch more big bass and suck less.
There you go.
Thanks, Austin.
No problem. I'll be back soon.